Could just go, hello, movie fans.
Hey.
My name is Laz, and welcome to Real Friends, a show where I talk to my friends, my best friends, Jackson and Jake, about our favorite movies. Is there anything better than talking to your favorite people about your favorite movies?
If so, I haven't found it. I killed the joke with.
We already got our TikTok clip. Yay!
Do we have a TikTok camera?
We're about to.
I guess.
Oh, they all are. No, they all are.
Which is our key camera?
With the magic of editing. Well, I think honestly,
probably be looking at.
Well, thankfully, both of you guys, your cameras are right next to each other.
Okay.
The phone is honestly probably going to be getting the better clips.
Okay.
Because my camera's acting really weird with lighting.
We appreciate all cameras from all.
All cameras matter. Even the blue one.
Oh, man. Turn on the kick.
Especially the blue one.
I prefer the two black ones, actually.
Let's get really political. What if all of our picks were just super political?
I just have to say,
my favorite movie is Do the Right Thing. Let's talk about it. Okay, so we're going to talk about our favorite movies. Oh, by the way, do you remember the story? Well, of course you know the story of John Mayer, the concert, and like all that. And
do I remember when I fainted and went to the hospital?
Yes,
I do remember that.
I'm just trying to black it out if possible.
Okay, so do you remember as part of that story in the waiting room of the hospital when I was in there, and like I've told you, like all the craziness that happened in the waiting room. The person sitting at the front desk was like watching a very racially charged movie.
Yeah,
and it like got a young mother and her family really upset and stirred up. It was Do the Right Thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No way.
It was the scene where Radio Raheem gets killed.
I haven't seen the movie, but that sounds sad.
Spoiled it for both of us.
But Radio Raheem gets killed.
Okay, this is a movie from like, what, 1995? Like, it's an amazing movie, by the way.
You should know it's on my watch list.
Yeah, it's really good. But it's like...
This movie, that's Spike Lee, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's extremely like about police brutality, and it was a lot. Anyway... I like pieced that together in my mind after, like, when I went and saw that movie later. I was like, wait a minute, I've seen this before in that story, which we will tell one day on the podcast.
Yeah. So anyway,
when we have John Mayer on the podcast, we'll tell the story.
Or Ethan Hawke. Aside from sadness, this might be the best thing you can have. So, you don't want to have Ethan Hawke on the podcast?
Oh, I would love to have him. It was kind of random.
Oh, he's kind of like my grail.
I guess
podcast guest.
He's going to come up when we talk about your favorite movies, but no spoilers. Here's what we'll do. We'll just go in this order. Like, I'll go first, then Jackson, then Jake. We'll do one at a time. So I'll give my number 4, then so on, and then I'll give my number 3, and so on.
And to be clear, we are literally talking about our favorite movies in
Top
the sense
4 favorite movies. Not saying that they're the best movies, although I have a sense that Jake's are going to overlap with what he thinks are the best.
I have a difficult time differentiating between best and favorite.
I think mine are certainly favorite in a way that is not best, but that's okay.
I think mine is somewhere in between.
Subjective, as long as you agree with me,
except for my taste.
Yeah. All right, let's jump into it. Who's starting?
All right, so I'm going to go first. Also, I feel like because my first pick, like my number 4 favorite movie is, although I don't totally know what Jake is going to come up with here, I know Jackson you're 4 because they're on Letterboxd. But what I was going to say is I feel like my number 4 favorite movie might be the most widely watched out of all of our movies we're going to say today. And that movie, by the way, can somebody pull up a timer, by the way?
I have
He's
one.
got one going.
Okay, so 4 minutes per movie.
Great.
And that movie is La La Land.
Wow.
La La Land.
I brought the Blu-rays. Brought the Blu-rays. Here's the thing. So the reason, especially this one, before I get into the movie itself, I think this specific movie, this specific Blu-ray is like the case for physical media. So here's what I mean. Beautiful, great cover. You got Ryan and Emma right there. I'm trying to show the camera and show you guys. But you remove the slipcover.
Wow. I'm sold.
Gorgeous. Look at this.
Beautiful.
Gorgeous.
Beautiful.
Wow.
Just absolutely beautiful. All right. So first of all, you have this, right? And it just fits the vibe of the movie. As soon as I pull this out, I'm like, I'm in. I'm ready to watch this movie.
You're 30 seconds in and you haven't started talking about the movie.
This is important. Okay. Also, the features on this Blu-ray, there's a feature where you can watch just the songs. And it's like a tight hour long.
Cool.
And it's just the songs from the movie.
With the
movie.
That's cool.
It just skips all of the non-music parts of the movie.
Wow.
It's amazing. La La Land. La La Land is my number 4 favorite movie. Here's the thing. This movie, like a lot of things that I love, gets a lot of shit for being like normie and overly dramatic, mainstream, overly emotional. But I'm overly emotional. And this is just so perfect for my sensibilities and for the sensibilities of anyone who is romantic or a dreamer or who cares about these kind of things. There's a line in the very beginning of this movie when Ryan Gosling's character, Sebastian, is like gets home to his apartment and his sister is there. She's like trying to set him up with her friend and trying to pull him out of this rut that he's in. He just got out of LA traffic. Life's beating him. He says in that scene, at a different part of that scene, he says, life's got him on the ropes and he's waiting. Then he's going to punch back. But what he says, it's a very subtle moment, but one of my favorite quotes in the movie is, why do you say romantic like it's a dirty word? I mean, that sums up the movie, I think. That's me to a T. That's literally me to a T.
What has aged the best since you first watched it?
Great question. Wow. What has aged the best about La La Land? First, I'll describe what the movie is real quick. I don't have a lot of time.
When did La La Land came out?
2016.
That's crazy.
2016. Yeah. Time's flying. 7 years ago.
Yeah, we were seniors in college.
Wow. La La Land is about two dreamers who meet each other at the prime of their pursuit of those dreams. One of them as an actress, the other as a musician. And they fall in love, grow together and grow separately. And their journey and their story of dreamers is really what the film is about. It's about the fools who dream. And the big climax of the film is Emma's audition, or Mia, her character, Mia's audition for a role as an actress that changes her life. And I think what has aged the best about this film, a couple of things. One, Emma Stone's a really good actor. Like, she's really good.
Yeah.
And I think going into this movie, she had done like Easy A before this, and like other
while
stuff
before.
Still really good. Like she was.
Let's not forget Superbad.
Superbad, of
She had
course.
already done Birdman.
Yeah. Okay, so she had done a lot of either comedy or like
Didn't feel like she was really a star,
parts,
yeah.
but being like a star, like a true Hollywood star. I mean, her character in this film has a giant mural of Ingrid Bergman on her wall, and so she's like, if not her, it's Damien Chazelle like calling a shot, like putting her in that role as like classic old Hollywood leading woman, along with the leading man being Ryan Gosling. So I think that's what's aged the best is both of them, the two leads, the actors, and it being just a timeless. It was set up to age well. My favorite scene, I'll end with this. My favorite scene is them tap dancing, just like at the top of a hill in Griffith Park, and it just looks like this could have been out of a movie from the 50s. It's just beautiful.
They really nailed the like film grain, twilight. Yeah, it's beautiful. That's time.
My number 4.
Excellent. Tight. All right. So we jump to me?
Yes. Okay. Jackson's number 4.
All right. I've always, this has been a rotating spot for me on my letterbox. But I will say it's an interesting one because it's not a movie I truly loved the first time I watched, and it's risen in rank every time. So I think I've seen it 3 times, maybe 4. And that's Arrival. Denis Villeneuve, I don't know how to say his last name, I'm sorry, directed this kind of fascinating sci-fi, but really a movie that isn't so much sci-fi. It in many ways sort of plays to sort of this romantic, very humanistic idea. And it's based on a short story by a guy named Ted Chiang, who I love some of his other stuff. He wrote an awesome compilation of books called Exhalation. And his stories and what he is able to do, I think, is this amazing, using sci-fi as a way to tell like very, very like purely human stories that are more timeless. And Arrival was a movie I saw, and I hadn't really read any of Ted's stuff, and I remember liking it's beautiful, and has this grand scale, maybe not to something like Dune, but still really beautiful. Amy Adams, Jeremy Renner. But I think it's one of those things that like the more time you get to spend with it and the more you get to sink into it, and what it's really trying to say is it sort of challenges these notions around certainly like who we are and other life or anything like that, but also the way that language and the way we think about time can totally dramatically affect our understanding of the world, what we value. I think it's one of the best films too on this idea of the medium as the message, it's probably a slight spoiler, but they're trying to communicate with these aliens. There's this brilliant line towards the end of the film where they're comparing the Americans' approach with the Chinese, who are all trying to communicate. And the Americans are communicating with these whiteboards and with language cues and trying to talk about feelings and names and emotions. And the Chinese are trying to, they learn to communicate with the aliens via chess. And I forget who says it, must be Amy Adams, talks about how fundamentally their entire ability to understand each other is warped by one being this more open-ended, infinite game, communication, seeking to understand each other, and the other being a finite game, chess, which ultimately, if you were to distill it down, is competition or war. And how that it literally is shaping their entire ability to understand the concepts of what each other are saying. And there are other examples of it, but it's one of my favorite examples in media in this way that is just really, really touching. And obviously, I think probably like all of the things I enjoy plays a lot with the passage of time as a film. So that's what I love about Arrival.
Sweet.
How much time do you have left on this one?
Let's see.
We're giving ourselves each 4 minutes per movie because we have 12 movies. 12 movies
We
to
have
talk
one more
about.
minute.
One more minute. Okay, we got 1 minute. Describe Arrival to an alien.
Oh, man.
So first, you have
You'll
to be
think
like,
of it
there are
in a
these
minute.
things called movies.
No, I think it's...
How about, okay, let's take a step
a
back.
story of
Describe Arrival
contact.
is probably too cutesy. Can you describe like movies to an alien?
It's our best attempt to replay the magic we see in life.
Holy shit.
Maybe. Yeah.
That's pretty good improv.
Yeah. That was well said.
Yeah.
Is it my
Anything to add, Jake,
Yeah.
to that one? Or should we go to the next movie?
I assume you've both seen Arrival.
I've seen it, yes.
Yeah, I have seen it.
There's little else like Arrival.
Yes.
That's one thing I always think of about it. It's a very unique film.
And it seems good on the surface. You watch it, like, oh, I gave it like 4 stars. I'm like, this was beautiful. Like, and the second or the third viewing, it just like really, it's kind of like one of those things you really have to sink into. Sometimes books, and maybe it's just as a quick aside, I really do think revisiting media you love, books and films, we have this notion that you should go try to watch as many things once as possible, read as many things once. And my bet would be that I probably get far more out of experiencing something. We're going to have a quick pause. Dylan did not get my text.
Hello. Welcome to Real Friends, a show where I talk to my friend Dylan about surprisingly being on the podcast.
Hey, what's up?
Hello. Dylan, what's your favorite movie? Yeah.
This isn't my favorite, but the first thing that popped into my head was Magnolia.
Careful, lots of stance. Lots of stance.
Magnolia is
Magnolia, okay.
masterful.
It's a hell of a
It's
movie.
a really good movie.
In masterful film.
It's somewhat similar to one of the movies on my list.
Interesting. Okay,
think
I'm
so.
curious to see.
I
Nice
think-
foreshadowing.
Just to finish that thought, I really do think if you don't go back and reread books you love, rewatch movies you love, maybe a little bit of time between, there's just something so beautiful about when you have the scaffolding up and you already have a familiarity with it. What you see the second, the third, fourth time.
Something new every time.
Yeah.
Let's hit it, Jake.
Jake, your
Okay.
number 4 favorite
My
movie.
number 4 is Birdman.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Cool.
So when Birdman came out,
That's why you mentioned Emma Stone. Is it
Yeah, that's
Birdman?
why- yeah.
Oh, okay.
When Birdman came out, it was when I was at USC. I'm going to give a little bit of a personal reason why I like it, and then I'll also explain why it's such a good movie.
No personal
Better
stuff
be
allowed.
personal. The whole point.
Our favorite movies.
I was producing and acting in a play at USC called Bad Habits at the exact same time that...
Play I saw.
Yeah, you guys were there. The same time that Birdman came out. And I remember seeing it in the theater and just feeling like I was watching my own struggle being like portrayed for me on screen. Like, I think Birdman, like better than any other movie I've ever seen, captures the feeling of like wanting to be famous, of wanting to have some kind of artistic significance to the world. There's like that scene where there's a lot of scenes throughout the movie where he has like a voice talking to him.
Right.
There's one part where he's like imagining himself flying, and the voice says, "This is where you belong, above them all." And I think it's like sort of this idea that some people have that they have to be famous or they have to create some kind of enduring work of art. Because I think the feeling is like you can never just be equal to people. You're either, the only way to stop being worse than everyone else is to be better than everyone else.
Holy shit.
And that you can never just be equal to everyone else. And so you have to do extra to be above them all. But it really just comes from a place of self-loathing. And I think,
yeah, totally.
yeah, I think that character has a lot of self-loathing.
Side note, real quick, because of what you just said, I'm reading Laurence Olivier's book on acting,
Yeah.
and he says in like the first chapter of that book that actors have to want to be famous,
Yeah.
like have to want that to like reach that level. that different level that you
Perhaps
just
that is the
described.
essence of performance.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. For those, I can give a brief summary. For those of you who haven't seen Birdman, it's about a former like superhero star actor who is trying to have some kind of relevance again. He hasn't really been
critically played by Michael Keaton, who played Batman, and was sort of
Right,
where he
right.
was in his life.
Super
This was
meta.
pre a lot of these movies.
It was
were
pretty
doing.
meta.
Yeah.
Right, it was before like the big Marvel.
Spotlight. Well, even before his resurgence, I think, as an actor in some ways.
Yeah, it was his. Because then the next
Before
year,
the founder.
yeah, it was, and then the next year he was in
Spotlight, maybe.
Spotlight. Yeah,
Yeah.
So that did kind of give him a career resurgence. But first of all, just the tension of the movie, the way that everything flows. That was like when I made my stand-up comedy special recently. One of my main goals was to make it so that every joke kind of flowed into the next joke, like topically. One like the punchline of one joke would lead me to the setup of the next joke, so that it would just kind of flow. Kind of like I love art that does that, like the back half of the last Beatles album, Abbey Road, right?
The best.
Yeah, how it's like every song flows right into the next.
Pretty good album.
Yeah, pretty good.
Jury's still out.
I feel like Birdman, at least in terms of the cinematography, does a really good job of that.
I would love to rewatch it.
So many like tracking shots, right? It's just like
Yeah, there's
not
not really. I don't think there's any cuts in that movie. I think the entire thing is
presented that way.
it's presented
Wow.
as a single shot.
I haven't seen that movie since it came out. And the other, you know what I think of on that note is 1917, which I never saw either, but apparently it was one shot, or effectively
good.
felt like it was one shot.
Yeah,
one of the best war movies I've ever seen.
Wow.
what was
Right.
that 4
You're
minutes?
about at time. Yeah.
All right.
All right, number 3 coming up. Quick break.
By the way, quick question: are these in order
what do you mean?
for you? Like, are these is it a very clear hierarchy? 1, 2, 3, 4 hierarchical?
So for me personally, of the 4, I mean, there are times when I watch La La Land and I'm like, nothing makes me feel this way. This is my favorite movie. I think all of my top 4, I feel that way. Sometimes I'll watch them and I'll be like, this is so just like such a potent, emotional, like just direct line to my heart that it's my favorite movie. So I have had times where all 4 of these have been my number 1.
Yeah.
But I think right now I'm happy with the order. Right now the order makes sense to me. In that La La Land is 4, this next one is 3.
Especially knowing there's a wrinkle at the end. Anyway.
What's your number 3?
My number 3 favorite film is 2022's Babylon.
Ooh.
By Damien Chazelle.
It's a callback for those of you who listen to episode
Babylon, directed by Damien Chazelle, 2022. Back-to-back Chazelle films in my top 4.
Yeah.
He has half of my top 4 favorite movies.
Strong work.
Pretty incredible.
Is Whiplash in your top 4?
It is not.
I think Whiplash-
I think when I first saw it, I would have said it was my favorite movie, but that was however many years ago now.
Is Damien Chazelle your favorite director?
I mean, based on this data, it's hard not to say yes, but it's also hard to, like, you can't mess with Spielberg's legacy. Like, you just, nothing can compete with that. So I think that both of them are kind of my favorites for different reasons.
Okay.
Spielberg for volume, for quantity, and Chazelle for quality.
Okay.
Yeah, that makes sense, right?
Yeah, I feel like if I was a director, I would rather be the guy that was loved for quality.
I mean, Spielberg also has quality,
Right.
But
Maybe it's like marathon. It's like LeBron versus MJ. It's like the peaks, the highest highs, but the career.
yeah, I just feel like Chazelle has something that he does and does it really, really, really well, and has done it a few times. Also, Chazelle's way, way younger and has had fewer opportunities. So it's like time will tell. Chazelle will probably, over the course of my lifetime, end up like far surpassing as my personal favorite. But right now, when I'm asked the question who my favorite director is, I still say Spielberg.
I wonder if...
Anyway.
Oh, yeah, sorry, go on.
Babylon. We've already done a full podcast.
We
on
have.
it. So I won't get into the nitty-gritty details. What I will say is that this movie, I love it because it's a movie. Like, you can see that clip of Harry Styles. He's like, it's just like a movie. When he was
Is it
in
more
Don't
of a
Worry,
movie
Darling.
or a film?
This film? Yeah, good comparison.
Seriously, I'm not. This of all the films
Well,
I've
there
ever
is
seen,
a literal film reel on the.
But I'm saying of all the films I've ever seen, this might be the Inglourious Bastards is probably the most both, But this is pretty close. It's definitely a movie and a
So
film.
you mean that in terms of like it's a popcorn good time,
pure
but it's
entertainment
also,
value and
like,
also
very
artistic merit.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, it's definitely both.
and
It's a
Glorious
movie and a
Bastards
film.
is the king of that to me.
Yeah, I like that. I like
I
that
would
a lot.
agree with you on that as well.
The reason Babylon, when I watched it, when we were doing pods about it, I put it in number 1 on my top 4 on Letterboxd. I actually made it all 4 of my top 4 at
You
one
did.
point.
You made it your whole personality.
I made it my entire personality, as I said I would in our podcast and on my Letterboxd review. Now with a little bit of distance, now that I'm able to just like put it on the Blu-ray or like digitally, because these come with the digital copy, by the way, more of my physical media propaganda. If you buy this, you also get, so if you're literally just buying digital anyway, it doesn't make any sense. Buy this, have it forever.
You're running out of time
Anyway.
and you're selling Blu-rays.
It's just a movie. Like it is just, to me, when I feel like I just want to watch a movie and I just love movies for the art form itself, what you said about the medium is the message. When I just am overcome with the enjoyment and the love I have for the medium, I go to this movie, and I have for the however many months it's been out. And crazy. I know it's only been months, but this is absolutely in my top 4. It's probably going to be there forever. This movie is something really special.
I'm really curious to see how it ages. Even just a few months from, I haven't seen, like it's a little fuzzy in my brain. I'm really like that second, or I guess I've seen it twice. The third watch in 6 months or whatever, I think it'll be really interesting. I will say, the 2 previous Chazelle films, I have inverse experiences on that. Where Whiplash, every time I return to Whiplash, is probably my 5-6 territory, along with Inglourious Bastards. Every time I watch it, I'm just like, this is so spectacular.
Like a master at work.
In La La Land, I've had the opposite experience, which is a matter of taste. But this one, I think, will be really interesting. Like, because we were all very, very hyped on it, and I do expect it to age very well. Babylon,
number 3.
Cool. I would say my next 3 are very much depends on the day. So it's very like a top 3 and then Arrival to me. And this might be my favorite movie. Certainly if I had watched it last night, I would say it is, but it's The Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Ooh, great movie.
Which I think is perhaps certainly of my list would be the one I would also put up for like great movies of all time. I truly think it is a masterpiece in many, many ways. Charlie Kaufman is somebody who has really, you just said it again, but has really played with this idea of film as a medium to tell stories in pretty unbelievably original ways. Also just somebody who is, there's an awesome quote I love from him where he talks about creating art and how you just have to offer something personal. And perhaps it is not interesting, but at least I am offering something. And he does that every time he makes a film. And they're really weird. Speaking of Synecdoche, New York, whatever. This is one that does that and just lands the plane so perfectly. And it just dives all the way into like the complex messiness of what we are, our relationships, how utterly broken we are, and yet like it's worth trying to put the pieces together and trying to do the really, really hard work. It's like in many ways a film that is kind of a study of like, is it better to take all of the messiness that comes with being together with connection, or is it better to just be alone and not have to endure that pain and all of the things that come with it? And I think it really makes a compelling case that it's worth trying.
Are there any quotes you remember from the movie, or maybe moments or things that stand out to you a lot? Because I feel like that movie especially has so many like just striking details.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know?
there's that part where Jim Carrey says, "I wish I'd stayed. Now I do." I remember that line for some reason being something that really stuck with me.
Yeah, I think there's a lot. The most memorable, at least the last time I watched, is there's this, I forget how many times he says it's like the final scene, and I think he says it like 2 or 3 times where he just responds with "okay." She's giving him all these reasons that she says one thing maybe supportive, and then she gives him all these reasons that they probably shouldn't, and it's not worth it, and or do you really want to be with me, and all this, and there's something about the way he responds with "okay" that sort of encapsulates that trade-off, which is like, yeah, rationality says probably not, but like, I'm okay with this. I'm going to try. It's gentle, but that's stuck with me a lot.
Right. It's like choosing emotion over rationality.
I think it's trying to like, again, it is entering the agreement that says I could stay away from the richness of experience and not have to risk the pain that I might get or I can enter in, I can risk something and try to connect with you, another person, knowing that you might betray me, or you might run away from me, or you might just literally erase me from your brain, and I'm going to try anyway. I mean, that's how the film ends. This is a spoiler, but it is. They have just gone through the blender of just the most utterly painful thing you can imagine. The person you love most in the world saying, I want to erase you from, I want to forget about you forever. And at the end of the film, they say, okay, it was worth it. Like,
wow.
They decide to try again.
Yeah. I think it's, a very powerful film to me.
Makes me want to watch it.
Now I want to watch it again.
It's also just, I genuinely think it is certainly one of, at least one of the best films made this century. Like a masterful film.
It is. I love Charlie Kaufman.
One last note about that movie. Not to gas you up too much, Jackson, but every time someone cites that movie as one of their favorite movies, that person is a cool person to me. Like, honestly. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's some movies when people like identify with them that you're like, I like you. I like this one, you know?
Yeah.
And this is one of those movies, I feel like.
I think this is the best thing about taste in media or art of any kind is like, I'm saying something about myself. I'm trying to offer something about myself to you.
Yeah.
When I tell you that something's my favorite movie, like, and by the way, when you can connect on that with somebody, there are all kinds of beautiful ways to connect with somebody, but I think this is one that is, cool.
However, I will say, I think it's cool that I'm pretty sure we aren't going to have any overlap today. Jake, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is a movie that I don't think either of you have even seen.
Okay.
It is a mostly forgotten Spielberg movie called AI, Artificial Intelligence.
I watched it 2 nights ago.
Dude, you did? What did you think?
And I didn't even know it was going to be on your list. I loved it when I was a kid, just because it's like a spectacle and it's like cool. And I think even as a kid, I saw like the relationship between like the 2 lead characters, and I just like something about that resonated.
Yeah.
And now like watching, I didn't watch all. It just came up on TV, so I didn't get to see all of it. But I like jumped in, and I mean, it's a good movie. Like it's also like how timely. Like now with AI literally taking over the world.
Yeah.
But sorry, go ahead.
Have you seen it, Jackson?
I have not seen it.
Okay, so basically the plot is it takes place in the future where we're able to program robots that can have emotions and feel things. And there's a woman who, there's these 2 parents that their kid is in some kind of accident and he's in a coma. And so they are the first parents to try out this new thing where you get to basically buy a robot kid that loves you. So the kid is like
a little bit like her. Obviously a different sort of plot, but
right,
the same emotions.
So the kid is programmed to love the mom, and then their original son, who's actually human, comes out of his coma, and then they like basically discard the robot kid. Wow. And then he embarks on a journey that lasts 2,000 years to get back to his mom.
Wow.
Yeah.
I gotta watch it.
It's
what do you love about it?
I think it really like gets into what it means to be human. The movie does, and I think that like the main character really he sort of epitomizes the dichotomy that we all feel between wanting to be special and also wanting to belong. Like when he finds out that there's other Robo Boys that were made just like him, it's devastating. But then he also is devastated by the fact that he can't be a human. Like he wants to be the only Robo Boy, but he also wants to be one of everyone else. Yeah. You know what like? We all want to be one of a kind, but we also want to be one of the herd.
It's so, oh my gosh, it's so poetic. Yeah.
It's like we want to belong, but we want to belong as our own
as the
version
individual.
of ourselves.
Yes.
Right.
Well, probably the most fulfilling thing in the world can be being distinctly you in a way that the world appreciates, right? Like,
so like,
yeah, that's great.
Yeah. He and also it's just about like, I don't know, like there's this quote from Paradise Lost where Adam says to God, "Did I request thee, maker, from my clay to mold me man? Did I solicit thee from darkness to promote me?" Basically, like, did I even ask to be here? Like, there's sort of a responsibility that you owe to someone that if you create their consciousness. I think that's sort of like a parenting thing. You owe something by bringing someone in, but by forcibly tearing someone away from non-existence.
Yeah.
You owe something to them.
We're now entering a world, not the first time people have thought this, but there are a lot of people today who talk about ideas like, how should you think about bringing life into the world, given the uncertainty of what the future might hold? I'm reading a sci-fi book right now that called The Three-Body Problem. That's sort of about this idea. If there is this possibility of impending doom, what is moral? Like, to give this somebody that, I don't know. It's, I'm really excited to watch this.
Yeah, you guys should watch it. Is that my 4 minutes? Am I up?
Yeah.
Or? Okay.
Well, probably.
Yeah, I need to rewatch that for
Paradise Lost, also need to watch. Sounds like.
Paradise Lost is a book from
it is?
the 1600s. Yeah.
that you apparently have memorized.
I have that one quote memorized. Yeah, it's quoted in
myself as deeply uncultured.
It's in Frankenstein.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I'm excited about this.
Number two.
We're up to number 2.
Wow. I know what this one is.
My number 2 is a film that was my number 1.
I'm shocked.
Since I saw it in 2016, with the exception being the month or so that Babylon was my number 1. Even then, I didn't feel totally right about having it above this one. This one's above Babylon again. But it's number 2, and I'm so excited to tell you my number 1. But number 2, I'm also excited to talk about. My number 2 favorite movie is 2016's Sing Street.
Ooh.
This is okay. I know I'm talking too much about the Blu-rays, but how
Beautiful
sick is
box.
this?
Beautiful.
This is like a custom one, not custom, but it's like it's from Korea. I'm pretty sure it's bootleg and not like official, and definitely not official, and probably illegal. But it's awesome.
Wow.
It's just another steelbook. Sing Street, great movie.
Wow.
Sing Street is probably
You've seen Sing Street, right?
Yeah, I watched
definitely
it with
my
class.
favorite to like describe what it is about to people, because it's just so easy.
It's the best.
We've
the
talked
best
about
one line.
it before.
We used to do this
On our old podcast
Yes.
way back. We
Yes.
talked about this movie.
One of the
when
best
we talked about
one-liners.
our favorites.
Describe it.
1980s Dublin, Ireland. A kid joins a new Catholic school, becomes, bullied, sees a cute girl across the street, goes up to her. She says she's a model. He says, "Oh, you're a model. You should be in my band's music video." They have a cute interaction. She's like, "Oh, I'll try to make it." He goes back to his friends. He says, "Guys, we got to start a band." Incredible.
Just incredible.
Kid starts a band to impress a girl, comes of age in the process, and the ending is, speaking of the themes of like being a dreamer from La La Land, the ending is just like so potent and wonderful. The end, I won't spoil the ending, like the very last moments, but there's also like added themes in it that really resonate with me personally. The music is amazing, like actually really good music.
John Carney.
John
Important to know.
Carney is the
Once,
filmmaker.
Begin Again.
Once and Begin Again, so good. Once is the movie that has that song "Falling Slowly" that I think won an Oscar.
Once is is easily in my
great.
top 10 favorite movies of all
So
time.
good,
Really
so
beautiful.
good. John Carney, just incredible. Sing Street is a movie that when I watch it, time evaporates. I put on this movie and it's just perfect. Like, it's just the perfect combination of everything that it is. There's a quote. I wish I had. Can one of you pull up my letterbox?
Yeah. On Sing Street?
Yeah, I just watched it a few nights ago to prepare for this. And there's a quote early in the movie where his older brother is talking about music videos.
yeah.
Because his older brother is like showing him music. And this is his older brother is who gets the
got
main
it.
character, Connor, into music and into like this format. And I'm pretty sure, I mean, you can't fully know and conclude, but knowing kind of how filmmakers put things into their movies, I think this is meant to be synonymous with just like film. So in the movie, he's talking about music videos, but I think you could say the same about film. So Jackson, can you read it, please?
And this lasts forever. It's the perfect mixture of music and visuals. It's short, to the point. Look at it. I mean, what tyranny could stand up next to that?
So good. What tyranny could stand up against
sorry.
Sing Street? What tyranny could stand up against Sing Street? None, to me. It is so wonderfully sentimental and has great music, and the guy gets the girl. It's so charming.
Yeah. It's not like the kind of movie that was made to win a Best Picture award at the Oscars. It's just
It
kind
came
of
out
made
the same year as La La Land.
Oh, it did.
Yeah. I remember that.
So that's what I always say about it is I say one of my favorite movies, and La La Land is one of my favorite movies, but even better is another musical that came out that year that nobody talks about, and it's Sing Street.
Great film.
Good year for musicals.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to zag here a little bit, and I'm going to place what I think has typically been in my number 1 spot, number 2.
Oh.
My top 2 films, though, are very similar in some ways. And my number 2 movie, I'm just going to pre-caveat for like the whatever. Yeah, it's like problematic guy. Was made a long time ago.
Sorry. Sorry, keep going.
But that's Annie Hall, which is
Wait, Woody Allen is problematic?
not ideal.
No, Diane Keaton.
Definitely not supporting anything he's doing now. But this is a movie that, first time I watched was really just kind of struck me, and it was like very quickly like I just watched a masterpiece. That's the best film I've ever seen.
I think we watched it together for the first time.
We certainly did.
In the old apartment years ago, and we were both speechless when the credits rolled.
We truly were. A movie that I had heard about for years that beat out Star Wars for Best Picture, and I was like, that's stupid.
Yeah, the original Star Wars, the first one.
And then I watched it. I think I was, I have a note, May 6, 2018. Well, a masterpiece, I think. Watched with Laz in the apartment. Had chills for the last minute. It's a movie about, I don't know, it's a Woody Allen movie. It's two people named after the wonderful and brilliant Diane Keaton. Her name is Diane Hall, her original name.
I didn't know that.
And is a movie in some ways just about some of the stuff we talked about today, but two people, a lot of dialogue. It takes a slice out of their life. It's the type of film I like, which is it's a little bit of people's experience. It goes over a period of time. It's two people trying their best. They don't always end perfectly happy, maybe like the traditional romantic films do. And there's a quote at the end where he describes sort of similar to Eternal Sunshine, this idea of like, why do we bother? And he gives this parable about this guy who brother has this imaginary chicken in his life, and he's like, why do you keep showing up for the chicken?
No, isn't he thinks he's a chicken?
Yeah, maybe he thinks he's a chicken.
Goes to a doctor and says, my brother thinks he's a chicken.
My brother thinks he's a chicken.
Yeah, right.
And why are you supporting this? Why do you keep showing up for it? And he says, well, I guess I need the eggs. And I think it's there are so many parts. Clearly I'm realizing this recurring thing for me of like, life is messy and it doesn't fall in the lines. And sometimes it does in movies, but maybe the films I love the most are the ones that acknowledge that. And they're still movies, and they're still probably neater than real life in some ways. But the films that go into the messiness and why we bother anyway, they stick with me. I think Annie Hall is a movie that will just continue every time I watch. I'll also admit I've watched my number one movie more recently, and I haven't gone back to Annie Hall in maybe a couple of years. And I'm sure if I went back to it now, I would. Yeah, it's just a masterful film.
My reaction as you were starting it, because I started to realize what you were going to put two and what was now going to be one, is I'm excited to hear you talk about what is now one. We both had a change of
we did
what was one for a long time becoming two. Jake, what's your number two?
Also, just quick. One of my favorite thinkers in the world, Marshall McLuhan, makes a cameo in Annie Hall, which is awesome. So anyway. He's like he's the guy who pulls when he's in line and he's arguing with the academic, and he's like, I wish I could just do this thing where you like go get the original thinker and like pull him in to settle your argument.
One of the early fourth wall breaks in a film.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Jake, I'm pretty sure I know what your top two are, but
You probably do. Yeah, my number two is The Godfather.
yeah, then I know what your number one is.
Yeah.
What could it be?
Yeah, I think the thing that's so hard to describe about The God, like it's so hard to encapsulate in 4 minutes what is so great about The Godfather because it's so many things. I think it's the best acting ensemble ever created.
Diane Keaton.
Yeah, Diane Keaton is in that as well.
She is?
Yeah, she plays Kay.
Kay.
Oh my gosh, you're right. Wow. Been a minute.
I think that the movie is really about like, it's like a lot of it is about America. The movie starts off with the guy saying, I believe in America. I've raised my daughters in the American fashion. But he's coming to Don Corleone because his daughter got beaten up by some guys, and then the guys didn't go to jail. There was no justice. So I think, and then Vito Corleone gives him justice. The sort of, and like later on, there's that police officer that's a crooked cop that basically took the police officers away that were guarding Don Corleone when he was in the hospital. which is kind of what gets Michael in the family business, is trying to protect his dad. Basically, it's the organized crime of the Corleone family and the Italian mafia in general is created as a response to the insufficient society, the corruption of the society that we live in. And so, like, someone like Vito Corleone, who does these things that are, on the surface so incredibly immoral, is actually a very moral man. He's the perfect man for the society that he's in. But just his allegiance is not to his country, it's to his family.
Right, and that's what it comes down to, isn't it? Is that the American dream, it questions to whom the American dream actually serves. And, like, do immigrants really only have a shot if they put family first, and in the sense of this sort of mafia template of the example that they're giving? Because I think The Godfather is just an example, right? It's an example of how this family goes about when America falls short for them.
Right. There's there's a monologue that Vito Corleone gives it towards the end of the movie where he's like, I refuse to be a fool. Like, where something about senators and politicians pulling the strings, like, while he's a puppet. Like, yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Jake, I'm going to give you a tough challenge here, which is, can you give your response to people who are averse to The Godfather for its violence and its subject matter, and don't see the underlying, like, story that's actually being told? Like, people who are distracted by the plot and don't see the beauty of the story.
Well, the plot's not that graphic. It's not like there's plenty of movies that are way more violent.
Sure, but here's you and I know that,
right?
But I think there are a lot of people who will never watch The Godfather because there's murder in it, because they've heard about it, or because they've heard it's violent, or they heard, like, I heard there's
about the mafia.
Heard there's a horse inside. Or yeah, it's about the mafia. It's about crime. It's about organized crime, and I think that can be a big stumbling block for a lot of people in appreciating the art that's there. Is like, how do you describe? Can you describe The Godfather without using any terms like mafia or crime, or, like, what is the story that's told? You know?
It's a story of it's an immigrant family, and the youngest son of the family wants to become more Americanized, but then he realizes as he gets older that his true allegiance is to his family.
Wow. Yeah, that's great.
I have two thoughts. Number one.
By the way, sorry, real quick, just because you just mentioned, like, the youngest son, do you think two are obviously one is more your favorite? Compare it to two. Godfather 2.
Yeah,
because Godfather 2 just passed up Godfather 1 on Letterboxd.
Most people say Godfather 2 is better. That's the acknowledged.
I disagree. I think Godfather 1 is better.
I strongly agree too. And so, I am curious.
Because of Marlon Brando. I'm a sucker for all-time great acting performances. Vito Corleone is one of the greatest characters ever created. The only reason why there's only one character I think that's an even better character than Vito Corleone, and that's going to be my number one movie.
Okay. Got it.
But
that's an interesting answer to that question. I like it. I have two thoughts. Number one, I think I kind of watched it as a kid, or I don't know, it was fuzzy memory. So I really watched it for the first time like 2 years ago. And I don't know if I've ever been like, oh my gosh, this thing lived up to the hype. Like, it is the most really hype-needing thing. It's like, this is the best movie of all time, and you watch it and you're like, oh my gosh.
It is.
This is the best movie of all time. It is so great. I strongly agree on number one. But more importantly, my second note is I kind of feel like the whole reason you even did this as your number two was so you could do your Vito impression, and we got like 3 seconds of it. So I need like a little bit more.
All I ever wanted you to do was be a man, huh? Women and children can be careless, but not men.
Thank you.
Can you do a little more?
I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
Hey, we got it.
Yeah, there it is.
Cool.
All right.
I feel like my Marlon Brando impression and my Bob Dylan impression are the same thing.
Like a Rolling Stone by Vito Corleone.
I was thinking of something like that.
Like a Rolling Stone.
Real
it's
quick,
the same impression.
One hot take here. Both in Heat and Godfather 2, Pacino totally outshows De Niro, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think Pacino's a better actor than De Niro.
I love him in
that's
Heat.
not the opposite of his performance in The Godfather.
Very subtle.
In The Godfather, his performance is unbelievably
He's so
subtle.
brilliant.
So subtle. It's like the greatest subtle acting I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's really amazing.
Well, his performance in 2 is Amazing.
Yeah.
I haven't seen 2.
You haven't seen 2?
Godfather
You have
Part
not
2?
seen Godfather 2?
Oh, I thought there was a movie called 2.
God, I was about to have a heart attack.
No, of course I've seen Godfather Part 2. Yeah, and I do agree
He's
that
like,
it's great.
I'm good.
He's like, what is better?
There's another one, but
Yeah, no.
Bro,
I've
oh
seen
my
them
God.
both. I think one's
know what?
better.
we've made it.
We've made it to number one.
number
Wait, hang
ones.
on.
I think it's worth acknowledging. Laz hyped this up to us before. Like I know what the movie is, but I don't know any of Laz's opinions on this film at all. And he watched it like in the last week, and it's now his favorite movie. That was
You watched a movie this week, and it is now your number one favorite movie.
No, I watched it like a year or two ago.
Oh, really?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, wow. You
And
hadn't
I
said
just
anything about it.
over rewatching it has climbed to my number one.
Wow.
Yeah. It is. So my number one favorite movie, this is a new revelation because, again, for the last 7 years, I've said Sing Street. But now my favorite movie is Charade, a 1963 classic film featuring Audrey Hepburn, Cary Grant. Directed by Stanley Donen, who also directed Singin' in the Rain.
Wow, I didn't know that.
This is
cool.
a spy thriller / comedy led by the female lead, Audrey Hepburn, which at the time was incredibly subversive. When you see Cary Grant as top billing, and he's like the Hollywood leading man at the time, sort of towards the end of his career. He only did a couple more films after this. You think he's going to be like the James Bond, because it's very much like a James Bond, almost parody, or at least satire. But very quickly in the film, you realize that Audrey Hepburn is the core of the movie.
Wow.
In every way. She's
Is this
like
pre or
emotional
post Roman
core.
Holiday, other stuff she's
Far post. This is like,
Okay.
she's in her 30s.
Okay.
And it is an amazing film. It has such smart humor. All of the lines of comedy aren't really even played for comedy. They just kind of like happen, and you're like, wait a minute, that was a great joke. You're like, oh, that was great. That was charming, or that was a really funny moment. A lot of it is physical comedy. A lot of it is, like I said, the writing is really good. What I love most about this movie is just like the story and just the adventure, the ride that you go on. So the plot of the movie, without giving too much away, because
Yeah, neither of us have seen this movie.
So many twists and turns. Like there's a reason that all the like marketing of the movie, and this is in the movie too, which in 1963, I don't even know how they did it, but like the opening credits are, you see that spiral on the front of the Blu-ray?
Yeah.
And
Very
like,
Bond.
Very Bond. And it's like just all of the marketing is like that spiral.
Box is way less cool than the other three, I'm just saying.
This is the Criterion one, which is funny because
Okay.
it's like the most expensive out of the three. Actually, no, I got this for cheaper, but it's the whole thing is a spiral. It's the things are unraveled and revealed over the course of the film between the characters and about Cary Grant's character, who is really mysterious. The film starts with Audrey Hepburn's husband dies, and she's in France at the time. And her husband was very wealthy, left behind a fortune, and there are now some men who were with him in the war when he found this money who are trying to get the money and think that she has it. So she's like trying to escape these guys. Cary Grant is like trying to help her, but he keeps changing his name, and she doesn't know who he actually is. And so there's a case of like unknown identity. There's the mystery, there's spy thriller, there's adventure. It looks amazing. Obviously, Audrey Hepburn looks amazing. Cary Grant looks amazing. Their outfits are great. And it is just such a charming movie that it is, to me, it is what movies are and can be. It is the quintessence of film.
Wow.
What pushed it over Sing Street? Especially in a way that's like personal for you, because as someone who knows how much and why you love Sing Street, and how personal it is.
Oh yeah. Sing Street is like if I could get a movie itself tattooed on my body, it would be Sing Street. Like if I could just hit a play button on my forearm and like play Sing Street, it'd be that.
Yeah.
But I don't know, Charade, it just to me is like, we've talked before about what favorite movies are, and to be honest, like these four, like we talked about before, I'm happy right now about the order, but it could change in a week. It could change tomorrow. I almost changed it again when I watched Sing Street again the other day. But to me, Charade was like a movie that for the past year or so, I'll just put it on and watch it. I just find myself being nostalgic for it. I found myself wanting to be watching it.
That's how I feel about Notting Hill.
Yeah. That's a good comparison.
Yeah.
I love the feeling I have when I watch that movie. I just feel so happy and so like just joyful to be watching the movie.
That's cool.
Yeah. Makes you happy? That's good.
I'm excited to watch it.
Yeah, me too. You have to watch Charade and you have to watch AI.
artificial intelligence.
Yes.
Also need to rewatch Her, given everything that's happening. All right. That brings us to my number one. This is in some ways like a lab-grown Jackson movie. It's like 80 minutes long. It's basically one scene, and it's two people walking and talking. It's a film that I think is a perfect film. It doesn't mean it's the best film, but I genuinely think it's a perfect film. And that is the second in a trilogy called the Before Trilogy, the film Before Sunset. For those who are maybe familiar, there's a first movie called Before Sunrise. Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy, directed by Richard Linklater, came out in the 90s. These two young people who meet. And this is a bit of a spoiler, so if you haven't watched them, maybe skip this part. But Before Sunset occurs 9 years later, and these characters haven't seen each other in some time, and they reconnect in their 30s. And the first movie is one that is very much about sort of this fantastical lens through which to see love blossoming. And the second is still a beautiful and hopeful and optimistic film, but also is much more honest than the first, and probably the reason I love it so much more. It's incredibly tight. Like I said, it's 80 minutes. It's two people walking around Paris. But I said earlier in the answer to your question, like what is a film? Like a film, I think, is us trying to replay the beauty, the things we observe about life, especially when it's just the ordinary, but it's like the most human. I want to read a Letterboxd review, or a segment of a Letterboxd review that I think actually maybe speaks to what's so beautiful about maybe all of these films, but especially this one better than I could. So I'll just read part of it from Kramer K on Letterboxd. He says, "There's a moment about halfway through Before Sunset that I can't get out of my mind. Jesse, played by Ethan Hawke, and Celine, Julie Delpy, are sitting in a Parisian cafe, and she lights up a cigarette. He's got the demeanor of a man who has quit smoking against his will, probably at the behest of a significant other whom I'm guessing broke his spirit with the subtlest, quote, 'I just want you to be healthy,' quote, psychological warfare imaginable. So he steals a quick glance at the carcinogenic happiness hanging from Delpy's lips, and then there's this look that comes across his face. Richard Linklater doesn't draw any attention to it, and it's so brief that you might miss it. But it's a look that says, quote, 'I remember what it was like to be 23, chain smoking until dawn, and caught up in conversation with the girl across from me. Parentheses, can I have a drag of that?' It's the look of a man who was once in love with this girl and was in love with himself for being in love with this girl. Actually, do you have another one of those? It's the look of someone who's relieved that there's at least one thing that hasn't changed over the past 9 years. This one slender thread that connects the events of the present to the memories of one night in a happier time. Can I get a light? It's a perfect moment."
It was well written. Kramer K. All right.
So yeah, if I can advocate, I love to tell people about these movies. The third film is yet another tone, and this one sits in between them as just one of the best. He goes on in that review, and I feel it. I'm sure you guys have felt similar things. like, you just get to go spend time with these two people who are, it's a recurring theme for me, clearly, who are not perfect. But it's the lens of like, what are these little, if life is a collection of little moments, it's all it is. There's no past, there's no future. It's just these little moments. The best art, I think, can capture that. And I think this one does.
That's beautiful. I think
the top three movies are all like about relationships.
They are. I think they are using relationships as a...
they're about fractured relationships.
Yeah, they're using relationships, though, really to go at something more elementary, which is the atomic kind of thing that is connection between humans. There's a great scene in the first film where Ethan Hawke says, the space between us is where God lives. And I think
Julie Delpy says that, doesn't she?
Maybe she says it. One of the two.
She says that little space between. It's Julie Delpy.
Oh,
yeah,
so good.
Yeah. So, anyway,
I think it's the most romantic movie ever made.
What, the second one more so than the first one?
Before Sunset. Yeah,
I'm a sucker for the first one. I love
the first one.
Great.
Is just
well, they're all
dream.
different kinds of love.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
The first one,
Fantastical love, maybe a hopeful love, and then maybe the third being this really honest love. But yeah.
Are they making a fourth one?
It seems unlikely. If it were to be made on schedule, it would have been made last year. Ethan Hawke has, and it seems particularly that Julie Delpy is pretty uninterested. Famously, the two actors co-wrote the second and third films with Linklater. Ethan made a comment. His daughter Maya is a brilliant actress, and he's made a comment a few years ago that could there be some possibility of doing a film far, far into the future?
Whoa.
That maybe
With Maya?
Yeah, I don't know.
How old is she?
She's maybe a little younger than us. I think maybe 25.
Okay, so she could do it now.
Yeah. But watch those movies. They're
That would be
really
good. She's a good actor. I
Yeah.
like her.
What movies is she in?
Her biggest thing is Stranger Things.
Stranger Things. She's
What does
going
she
to
play
be
in
in
Stranger Things?
I think she's in the new Wes Anderson Asteroid City.
Yeah,
I
she
think
is. She is. What's her character's name in Stranger Things?
I don't know.
She was also in that movie Do Revenge with Camila Mendes.
Oh, okay.
I missed
They
it.
both led that.
Also, just shout out Ethan Hawke.
Yeah, Ethan Hawke's
He's the
amazing.
best.
Ethan Hawke, we want you on the podcast.
Yes, he should come on the pod. We need Ethan Hawke, Michael Keaton, John Mayer. That's our list.
Yeah, but Michael Keaton is a shout out for
Taylor Swift.
the OG listeners of Jackson and Labs
It really
Audio.
is.
Jake, tell us
Jake,
about
your
your
number
favorite
one
movie.
film.
Well, why don't you guys tell me what my number one is?
There will be blood.
Yes, There Will Be Blood is my favorite movie of all time. In no small part because I think it's the greatest character ever created and the greatest acting performance ever put on screen. I could I'll tell you guys a little bit about my thoughts about the whole movie, but just nothing makes me love that movie more than just Daniel Day-Lewis's ability to convey so much information with every little muscle in his face. every little
amazing.
I don't know. There's something about both his performance in There Will Be Blood and Marlon Brando's performance in The Godfather. Both of those actors take big swings. Like Marlon Brando stuck cotton balls in his mouth and talked. Well, I guess he already talked like that, but
Yeah, could easily have been cringe.
yeah, it easily could have
I have a straw that goes all the way into your milkshake. I drink it up. Drainage, Eli.
he's so he's so outlandish. He's so big. It's like an Al Pacino performance where it's like so over the top, but at no point does it feel indulgent in the slightest bit. It everything serves the character.
It's totally believable. Oh my gosh, it's such a good point.
It's hugely outlandish, but still completely believable.
And honestly, both him and Paul Dano, which obviously culminates in the scene you're talking about, which is one of the most memorable film scenes ever.
Yeah.
Full stop. Are both just totally absurd.
Yeah.
And yet you're in it. You're in it with them.
Context too. That final scene in There Will Be Blood, the drainage, all that. You only get the payoff because you've watched the 3 hours of it.
Yeah.
People say, "Oh, it's such a long movie." You need it. You need
Every scene in that movie is its own little masterpiece.
Yeah.
And I think that ultimately what the movie's about, or at least what it means to me, is like what it means to lose yourself in a goal. Like he's someone who's so fixated on getting to the finish line that when he gets there, he's not happy. Like I think that it's about capitalism in a lot of ways. I mean, that's not a bold claim to say There Will Be Blood is about capitalism. Like I think a lot of people would agree with that.
There's a lot of overlap between There Will Be Blood and The Godfather.
Yeah, and
Capitalism, America, family, ambition.
I made a list on Letterboxd, or I started making a list of movies about obsession. And Godfather I should put on it. But I also have Whiplash on there. Or Prestige, a few different ones. The Last Dance. This is probably the best film on obsession ever made.
Yeah. And remember that quote in Batman where the Joker says, "I'm like a dog chasing cars. I wouldn't know what to do if I actually caught one." That's what capitalism does to people. Why do you think Warren Buffett is 92 years old and he's still running Berkshire Hathaway? I mean, he's seems like a well-adjusted guy. Like he's not, but there's no end goal. You never win.
Yeah.
It's never over.
Yeah.
And that's why when Daniel Day-Lewis has a chance to he says I just want to make a lot of money so I can get out of this place and get away from these people. And he has an opportunity to become absurdly rich when the people from Union Oil or one of the big oil companies wants to buy him out.
Standard Oil, I think.
Yeah, Standard Oil wants to buy him
yeah.
out. And he says, I'm going to find where you live and slit your throat. Before that, he says, what would I do with myself?
Yep.
It's the pursuit of the goal that becomes more important to him than the goal itself.
I think one thing that movie posits, which I'm curious to know your take on it, Jake, is whether that type of ambition can only come at the cost of someone else, which is why he kills Eli at the end of the film, which is why he kills the guy who pretends to be his brother. Like he has to kill the other man. He says there's a competition.
I
in
have
me.
a competition in me. I want no one else to succeed. I felt that quote so much. Like, the way that he feels about the people around him is how I would feel when I was doing stand-up comedy. I guess I shouldn't say when. I still am technically a stand-up comedian, but the way I felt about other comedians sometimes.
Like you don't want the other.
You don't want
comedians
anyone
there
else
do well.
to succeed.
Yeah.
And you just want to win so bad so that you can tell everyone to go fuck themselves.
There's an arc across all your movies, by the way.
Yeah, there is.
Clearly. And I think what's interesting about it is you're
Except AI.
it's dance. No, even on AI, you made the point that this kid wants to be accepted, but he doesn't want there to be other robot boys. There's something there about. I've always been fascinated with this idea of finite and infinite games, and or positive sum. In many ways, Arrival's about this idea of positive sum games. This is sort of eureka moment in the film, and knowing the line between and getting to this sort of like place where you can accept that winning the race is long and it's only with yourself. It's not about somebody else failing. Granted, maybe if you play basketball, it is, but most things in life are not like that. And I noticed that trend across all of your films. That's really interesting.
What you notice? What trend?
This idea that you're clearly so interested in these arcs of ambition. That
Greatness
are about
is like the shortcut.
greatness, but also uniqueness. And being and by the way, being able, you made the point about Birdman. You made the point about AI. Clearly, here some of it in The Godfather. This idea that like to be great, do I have to be above?
You have to be above other people,
or can I be great in being the best version of Jake or Jackson or Daniel Day-Lewis? Like, and many of these characters clearly struck. Maybe this is the best one in the point of Blas was making, like a guy who clearly couldn't get that through his mind.
Exceptionalism being another way of coming at that theme.
exactly.
I think we all have themes.
We all have some themes.
We definitely all have themes.
Yeah.
Jackson's are all about relationships.
Yeah, connection.
Connection.
You can include Arrival in that list if you label it as like connection.
Yeah.
Right.
All about connection.
Yours are like greatness, exceptionalism. Right.
Yeah,
And like
standing out, and yours are all about
mine are like
sentimentality.
sentimentality is probably
Yeah.
the word.
Yeah,
You can learn a lot about a person by their four favorite
really.
movies.
I was thinking, maybe I would also say I like movies about being like, how can I like, and noticing back to the moments thing, like this, and maybe that's why I'm so interested in the passage of time. Is it's like it's this forcing function to say like this is it.
Wow. Well,
boys.
this has been fun.
This is really good.
This is good.
good
It's like
episode.
made me
Right
feel
over an
good.
hour.
Yeah, right over an hour. Talked about a lot of movies. Got to edit this. I'm going to try using that AI thing to edit this.
Cool.
Have you seen that?
Which one?
There's
There's a
this
bunch.
AI software that will, because we have multiple cameras and it's going to cut to each of us when we talk. But there's an AI software that just does those
Yeah,
things
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That takes hours.
You can also do transcription
There's
and all
that
kinds.
too.
Of,
Yeah, there's so many ways to do it.
I'm really excited to go watch. I mean, I would like to watch
AI.
AI. I'm very excited to watch
Charade.
Charade.
I have the Blu-ray.
Cool.
That's what they're for. All right.
We'll see you guys next time. Also, shout out to Whitney, who really loves this podcast and wanted us to do another
Yeah.
one.
Shout out to
So,
Whitney.
Shout out to our listener.
Oh wait, I actually have a shout out too. How am I going to do this? Shoot, I forgot her name. Never mind. I'll cut this out. Never mind. Shout out to Whitney and shout out to Kurt and shout out to Jonah
And all our other millions of listeners.
and shout out to our millions of listeners.
Hey, Jonah.
Hey Jonah, you'll be watching this in the future. Your uncles Laz, Jackson, and Jake.
That might be giving us a little too much credit.
Hopefully we're still alive. That's going to be really, really morbid if we're not.
We're not
If
alive.
all three of us are dead for various
Yeah.
reasons.
They'll just use AI to
That's
generate
true,
new podcasts
yeah.
of us.
Yeah.
Real Friends is going to go on for eons. Thanks to
That's true. Thanks
AI, artificial
This podcast
intelligence.
brought to you by AI. The movie and the thing. All right, bye.
We'll see you later.